Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello everyone, welcome to Uncommon Sense. I'm Junior Doan. Thank you for joining us. My guest today is Tom Kimmel, owner of Kimmel Steam Power. Tom is a University of Michigan history graduate and retired nursery owner from Berrien Springs, Michigan. He is now pursuing his passion of thermodynamics and mechanical things. Tell me about Steam Power Company that you started.
Well, what it is mainly I have a website where I put all the information I have found in the last 15 or 20 years, plus my opinions, in the theory that people would be interested in both the information and my opinions. It has been somewhat of a disappointment, but it amuses me to no end.
What is the disappointment part?
Well, not everybody asks for my free advice, and those who do don't take it.
And what was amusing about it?
Oh, anything that amuses myself is great. It's very interesting intellectual activity. I get to tell about everything I've collected. I have a library with over 600 titles in it. I have all kinds of magazines, articles, technical papers. Plus I've spent 20 years collecting little bits of steam stuff that people have made in their backyards.
Tell us something about that collection of steam stuff that people have created in their backyards.
Well, there have been any number over the years of old guys who got inspired about steam for any number of reasons, and that's what the interesting story.
This would have been the early 20th century or even earlier? Earlier, probably, because we had steamboats.
Well, but I'm only interested in modern steam.
Okay, and what is modern steam?
Well, modern steam is what happened after the 1930s.
Okay.
Most of what I'm doing has to do started about the 1960s. There was quite a flurry of activity in steam power because of smog, because steam burns clean and doesn't make smog. Any number of people were working on this, making little things, little wood-fired little carts, trying to solve the smog problem in Los Angeles, making cars, doing all kinds of stuff. Usually when they work by themselves, they end up starting late in life, so they don't get the chance to make all the mistakes you need to make before you can do something useful. And then as soon as they die, their widow wants to throw everything away because they wasted all their life and most of the family fortune. So I've been fortunate to be in the right place to collect most of their collections.
And what have you learned from their research?
I've learned that there are a great many very, very clever people. I've learned that steam power is very complex. And I've learned that you have to make all the possible mistakes that everybody makes. Everyone always starts with a Tesla's turbine, goes on to a rotary engine before they get to something that actually has a possible chance of working.
And it would work to motorize a vehicle in lieu of the gas-powered vehicle?
Most of the people were interested in that. They were very much inspired by the early steam cars, which basically the white steam car was stopped manufacturing in 1910, Stanley in 1922, and that was the last of that. And so everyone has tried to improve upon those. And it's very easy to improve upon them because that was very, very old technology. So with that as a model, everybody wants to make a steam vehicle. The problem with steam vehicles is they stop and go, and it's hard to get the fire to start up and stop quick enough for stop and go, but it is possible. But I like steam power for all manner of uses.
Such as?
Stationary power to make electricity. Steamboats are the best because you don't have stop signs out in the middle of the lakes. And I now think that the best use of steam possible is for ultralight airplanes.
And how would you energize them? What source of energy would you use?
For each one of those, a different thing. All you need for steam is a fire. And basically you burn something for a fire. If you're making backyard steam, you want to burn wood because everybody thinks it's fun to cut trees down with chainsaws and burn wood to heat their houses. Then they want to make power besides. If you're going for an airplane, you want to have energy density, which would be kerosene.
I see. And so what is the design, or is there a design component of the plane and the engine? There seems to be, there would be.
Oh, you'd have to design the engine for what you're using it for. If you have stationary power, you want a single cylinder because that's the simplest with a great big flywheel. If you're making an airplane, you want it to be very light and a very long stroke, so you have a long, slow-turning propeller because they're quiet and efficient. And so that's what you're looking for. You design the engine. You can make an engine that either goes 10,000 RPM or does 300 RPM, and you design the engine around the ultimate use for it.
Has this been successfully demonstrated before?
Not really for ultralights. A fellow named Bill Bessler flew an airplane in 1930s just to show off his technology. That was a great success. He took a movie of it, flew up, spent one day practicing, one day in front of the cameras, took the thing apart while he was still alive, and so he's famous.
There must be hazards to doing it. What are they?
I don't really know what the hazard would be. We use, in modern steam, we have used monotube boilers, which use very small diameter tubing. Mm-hmm. The tubing I use is like 8,000 psi, and you can go up to stainless steel, which is up to 16,000 psi burst strength. So you don't really have a hazard from the thing blowing up. You may have a hazard from the fire going out and stopping, but not that much in the way of hazards.
Have you ever worked personally with these?
Oh yes, I have. I had a mechanic for about 10 years, and we would. And the problem was I'm also an inventor, and there's no worse curse than that. Particularly if your wife finds out about it and how much money you've spent. That's a terrible thing. So yes, I made a wood-fired dune buggy that went like the wind. That was fun. It was one of the great disappointments of my life. I'm one of the very few people who went to Burning Man and flunked the safety test.
What made it flunk?
Well, I forgot to put on an approved safety blow-off valve. I was unaware that at Burning Man they would actually be interested in a safety valve. The thought had not crossed my mind, or I'd have stuck one on, not hooked up to anything, but just to make it look good. So I forgot the safety valve.
Were you allowed to resubmit?
Well, no, I'd have to come back the next year, and so that was quite a journey. So no, I haven't been back.
Mm-hmm. So how much of looks versus safety is there in steam engines, or is it just Burning Man?
Burning Man was the only problem. They had some engineers who were looking a little cross-eyed at what I was doing. Otherwise, I've burned a few holes in some tubes, but never been around anything resembling anything dangerous or an accident.
When you say you're an inventor, what problems draws you to solve or address?
Well, it's almost everything. When you're dealing with steam, you start out with a fire, so you've got to have clean combustion. Then you need heat exchange, and I'm very good at winding coils. I wind both helical and helical and pancake coils, basically monotube coils. There are several different ways of controlling them.
Excuse me, for those of us who need an explanation, what's the difference between the two, and why would you go to one or another?
The helical coil looks a lot like an early Buick front coil spring. It's more or less a cylinder spiral like that. Pancake is flat, and it looks like a snail. It starts out little and goes out around. So what you need is several hundred feet, and so I've made them anywhere from like 100 feet to 1,000 feet of tubing when I've made boilers. And whether you have them pancake, then you want the flow of the heat to go this way, and if they're helical, then you want the heat to flow either from outside in or inside out.
Clear explanation, thank you. And so continue the explanation, the choice, you built them both, and?
Oh, and then I try to use them, then try to figure out how to control them so that the steam comes out at the right pressure and the right temperature. One of my great successes, there's a fellow on the Isle of Man who's going to go to Bonneville with a steam-powered motorcycle. And they made the boiler for him, a little thing out of stainless steel tubing. He figured out how to put electronic controls. I had analog controls that didn't work very well. So,
and what would that be powered by?
He found a V2, a small V2 steam engine, about like this, 2-inch bore, 2-inch stroke. It was made in England in the early 1950s, so he has one of those on it. Oh, and it burns kerosene.
But kerosene is dangerous because it can explode when it's
Well, kerosene
No?
is very similar to fuel oil, and many people use them to heat their house and sleep well at night. So,
and therefore, if you have the right container, it's fine.
no, well, kerosene is not volatile like gasoline, so it's much less explosive than gasoline. It burns quite well, but that's about it. That's not the dangerous part.
I read that you were interested in creating a motor that would be as good or almost as good as the diesel. Tell us about that, and how far along are you? What remains to be done?
Everybody who works in steam is looking for thermal efficiency. Just to give you an example, the old-time coal-fired railroad locomotives were 6% efficient. Presently, your diesel engines are pushing 35 to 40% thermal efficiency. In other words, that's the amount of heat from the fuel that gets turned into mechanical motion. I basically converse with a lot of people who are working on the ultimately efficient steam engine, and they think they can do, well, they'll tell me they can do 25%, and if I don't say anything, then they'll say 30%, just testing to see how much gullible I am.
Yeah.
And they have gone up to 35% before their conscience bothered them. Basically, it's a higher pressure, higher temperature is how you get thermal efficiency.
In your wildest dreams, do you see this as a hobby market or a helpful market for people who are looking for conveyances?
I see it more as a hobby, much more as a third world market. The beauty of steam is you burn any fuel. So you have all kinds of people in this world. You have most of whom are strange, I might add, but that's another story. You get the survivalists who want to burn wood, and which is good. And steam is the only way to turn wood into mechanical energy. And also it's carbon neutral, which is nice.
And who are these other strange people?
Well, you get green people who want to save the world, which is a good idea. Their money's as good as anybody else's, so I'm not going to make any political commentary on the difference between preppers and green people. And then you have third world people who are just trying to get through life, and they can't afford $8 a gallon diesel fuel out in the middle of whatever tropical country they're living in.
How do you get support, or does one get support for this kind of research, tinkering, design, and inventing?
It works really good if you marry well. I have not found anybody in the entire world who has given me any money. Now, I found some old guys once who have given me their life collections.
Yes.
But I had to build a very nice building and develop credibility by paying too much for the first things I collected, and then it just comes after that.
Because you become the repository of excellence.
That, and I've shown that I'm serious about it, and I've shown a dedication to the cause.
How long does that take to do, to get credibility?
Oh, it probably takes about 10 years. I had to buy a few steam cars to start with, and then I had to collect a few libraries, and then after that it just comes.
Do you find, I've run across some people who collect cars, and they drive them or they have them driven once a week. Are steam cars or engines subject to being driven every so once in a while to keep up their mechanisms?
It's very useful to drive them because otherwise they sit around, they kind of get rusty. There's a way to clean them out and lubricate them in between driving. Your steam people actually drive the cars are the antique or vintage. And there's something like in the United States probably 300 left over from the probably 30,000 steam cars that were made in the early part of this century. And people drive them fairly regularly, and they're enormously dedicated people who keep them going. I'm not one of them.
But you must like that kind of fierce dedication to a challenge.
Oh, I love watching these people. First of all, a real Stanley or a White is going to cost somewhere between $100,000 and $200,000, and I forgot to work hard when I was younger, so I don't have that kind of money.
And your wife?
We're lucky to still be married, so I don't push it.
You know, I'm taken that you chose this field. What drew you to this particular slice of it?
Well, it was back when I was a kid, even in elementary school. I was fascinated by thermodynamics. You build a fire, something happens, you make energy, you make things move. When I finally got old enough, I was able to join the Steam Automobile Club of America and find people who were doing things. Then I liked it because it was quiet compared to a noisy diesel engine. Steam engine is completely quiet, except for the people who blow the whistles, which I refuse to have a whistle on anything.
Why, or did you ever consider rockets while you were building early on as a child?
No, that didn't mow the lawn. I was always interested in something. If you can't mow the lawn, then it is of no practicality.
So you like application use?
Oh yeah, I like something that's useful for real world stuff.
And were you ever able to mow the lawn with one of these steam engine designs?
No, I have not, although I met a fellow in Erie, Pennsylvania, who been in steam all his life, MIT engineer, and I saw his steam-powered lawnmower. He'd send the kids out. He had an extensive lawn, and they would pick up all the twigs that fell down during the week, light the fire, and then they could mow the lawn.
Oh, is that ever clever?
Well, it gave the kids something to do.
And exciting. Do you ever go into the schools and talk about your interest?
No, I have not. I keep waiting for people to come to me.
And ask you?
Yeah.
Who did you get this inventive side to? What was your family like growing up? Were they?
My father was fairly creative, but not mechanical at all. My mother's side of the family were very mechanical, but not creative. And I was cursed with the desire to invent something. So far, I've thought of some very interesting things, but mostly I'm smart enough to appreciate cleverness on other people's parts.
What have you thought of?
Oh, there's just more ways to go into how to. There's more little details. A steam power system's incredibly complex. It's got like 6 pumps, 3 or 4 heat exchangers, and you're doing everything. You're building a fire, you're doing heat exchange, you're controlling the pressure of the steam, you're expanding it, you're trying to keep the temperature from losing it. You're trying to do a lot of things.
Complexity appeals to you.
Well, of course, I didn't know it was going to be complex when I started. As I often say when people ask why I went into STEAM, I said, I always tell them it's the same reason most people get married. They think it's going to be easy and fun.
Well, no part of life is 100% one way.
I'm finding that out, but it's too late now.
In many areas.
Yes.
That's good. I've always been a curious person, but not necessarily a hands-on designer of things other than beauty, like rooms, houses, but not in solution-oriented things like we're talking about now. And I have a very good visual sense. If there's something off, like a picture is a quarter of or even an eighth of an inch off, I get disturbed. I'm not looking for it, but I notice it. Is there an analogous thing about working with your hands or working with your brain to solve these interconnected problems? Excuse me.
There probably is, because you get a real feel for kind of what things should be like. There's a very interesting story. I get to run around the country and interview people. Well, first of all, I decided some years ago I was going to write a book. Well, you never write a book unless you have self-discipline.
Right.
So the book is still in the interviewing people stage. So I've interviewed half a dozen engineers that worked with Bill Lear. He wasted $10 million on a steam car project, several of them. So he designed this steam car, and somebody dropped a decimal point when they were calculating the condenser. And anybody with experience could have walked by it and said, that's a little teeny condenser, it's not going to work. Well, one day somebody looked at it, redid the calculations, found out that the little condenser was a tenth the size it should have been. And they quietly, whoever made the mistake, quietly pushed it over in the corner and covered it up with something, and they went on to other things. So you can kind of tell when you look at stuff if it kind of feels right.
Does that come out of experience or three-dimensional visualization?
Well, you have to be able, it comes out with experience,
Yeah.
but it helps if you can design stuff and visualize stuff. That's the fun thing about it. I mean, it's a talent some people have, some people don't. Just like some people have self-discipline and can write a book.
So when your teachers, as a young boy, were teaching you, what would be the best way to teach someone like you?
That was not really available in the 50s and 60s. I have never in my entire life been so bored with anything than schooling. Never really understood it. The seminal event of my life was flunking calculus at 2 different universities. So I really don't have a high opinion of the educational system.
Because it didn't prepare you, or you just couldn't catch what the professor was trying to have you understand?
Well, with calculus, I had poor professors. With everything else, it was just boring.
How do you take someone who's bored and is a child and interest them based on your life experience?
I wouldn't have any idea except you let them play with whatever it is they want to play with. The one thing in analyzing my life, the one thing that I did was got a good liberal arts education at a good school. And what they ended up teaching me, and of course I was totally unaware at the time, was they taught me how to learn. And I'm self-taught in any number of areas, somewhat diverse. And to me, that's the most interesting part of life, is learning how to learn. And as long as you ask me, thank you, I'm most proud of the fact that I have a fellow award from the International Plant Propagator Society for speeches I've given on some of the finer points of plant propagation.
So here you are with a tremendous amount of curiosity and drive. And there's a relentless side of you that does not, what do I say, feel complete, is that a fair word? Well, you feel that you've explored it enough unless you get to the plant propagator point or to solve some of these issues. Can that be taught?
I have no idea. I know that I have to have an intellectual project to continuously be working on, and then that otherwise I'm flailing around at loose ends. So I have not been flailing around for the last 15 or 20 years. There's always more to do than I can do.
Do you find the people who are interested are young people?
Well, the people I end up talking to are the older people who have spent a lifetime working on it and then have some experience and something to show. There are many young people who are interested. If you get on to, the worst thing you can ever possibly do is try to do STEAM research getting on the web, or worse yet, YouTube's. It's a wonder anybody's still alive.
Why would that be?
There's no good information on the internet or on YouTube.
Even in Wikipedia, which is supposed to be self-corrected by the experts in the field?
Well, Wikipedia is not too bad. I don't spend a lot of time looking at it. But the research has to come from actual printed material or actually talking to people.
How does a beginner in this field get going?
Well, I've thought about that. My suggestion is that you join a local steamboat club, or find some excuse to be around people who are working on something, and then otherwise you got to buy a little steam engine and just start. You light
Making
a fire.
those mistakes.
you try to survive the experience. You don't want to blow the thing up. The people on YouTube, they always get some propane tank, fill it half full of water, and light a bonfire under it. And there's no quicker way to die.
Yeah.
Pardon me for getting excited. I was trying to calm down here.
Don't ever calm down. Anyway, I've been thinking about this over the last few months. How much does a time period of a culture influence what people do? And it seems to me that steam engine, as you said, interest in the 60s came out of an interest in smog and perhaps other things. And so I'm asking myself, What is the culture now that would encourage research or interested in? Can you hazard a guess?
Well, part of the culture is that there are 500,000 either cabins or houses that are off-grid. So everybody wants off-grid. And right now, if you want off-grid, you're doing photovoltaic panels or a little bit of hydropower. Except that everybody who's off-grid wants to heat the house, and you can't heat the house with solar power because it's real tough heating the house at night with solar power. And so those kind of people are interested in it. Now we're very much interested in carbon neutral fuel. And carbon neutral means it has to be some biofuel,
Right.
because that's completely carbon neutral. And so that is where the current interest is. There's another whole series of people that are interested in helping third world countries. Aprovecho out in Oregon, for example. Plus I've been in communication with a Dutch company that's trying to figure out how to pump water for gardens. Plus there's a place near Kalamazoo called Tillers International that is trying to find a technology that's good for third world countries.
I have to end, and I'm so sorry, but it's very interesting. So what did we learn here? We learned a lot. First of all, have high personal standards, high level of curiosity, and have three-dimensional ability. Second or fourthly, we've learned that you have to be in your times and you have to aggregate around you the best in your field. And in his particular case, he says, don't make the same mistakes, learn what the mistakes are and benefit from that point of view. Another thing that I found very engrossing is that he tells you that the sense of aliveness almost comes from when he's solving a problem and taking on adventure. So I offer that to you in your life. Have a wonderful week. Find out what excites you. And see you next week. Be kind. Be kind to someone you know and someone you don't know. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you so much.
To contact Junia, send her an email at info@juniadone.com. For more information, program schedules, and news about future guests, go to www.juniadone.com. Thanks for joining us. See you next time for Uncommon Sense with Junia Doan.
Local productions on QTV are made possible with support from viewers like you. Thank you.